This is the 2023 Ducati Multistrada V4 Rally, and I've been riding it for the past couple of weeks or so, and I've got to say it's absolutely fantastic and probably about as good as it gets on the large capacity adventure market. In fact, I'd say it's almost perfect. And so in this video I'll go through my 10 favorite things about it, and then at the end, the one thing that isn't.
Number 1 has to be the engine, with this phenomenally powerful V4 Gran Turismo. And it should come as no surprise really that it's so punchy, because you can basically trace it back to their MotoGP program, with them introducing a V4 in the early 2000s. That then influenced the Desmo Sedici Stradale engine, which is used in their Panigale V4 and Street Fighter V4, before they most recently introduced a slightly detuned version for the Multistrada V4 and Diavol V4 Power Cruiser. The idea is to give it a bit more mid-range focus instead of that revvy top end that you want on a sports bike, and they've also ditched the somewhat fiddly Desmodromic valve train, despite it being a signature Ducati feature, in favour of some regular spring-actuated valves. Now they might not be as good for those serious revs, but the massively lengthened service intervals will be greatly appreciated by most owners, especially if you're planning to do some serious touring miles. And still, despite that change, this bike is making 170 horsepower peak, which is plenty. Whether you're out for a sporty solo ride or if you're too up with luggage on the motorway and looking to make that quick overtake, this bike always feels like it has loads of power in reserve.
The other great thing, of course, about a V4 engine is the soundtrack, and I absolutely love winding this bike up and hearing it sing. This particular press bike has the full adventure package, and although it's a little bit obscured by this heat shield for the luggage, it actually gets this lovely looking carbon-tipped Akropovich silencer, but I will say it's not that loud at the exhaust. But fortunately, you do get a lot of induction sound in the cockpit, and I think it more than makes up for the quietness at that end.
And yet, at the same time as being absolutely rapid, this is such a comfortable bike. Because it's so substantial, you get loads of room, so nice wide bars, lots of leverage, a big saddle, plenty of room for your legs, and with this being the Rally version 2, you've got the longer subframe that's been beefed up, so plenty of space for a passenger. I guess the downside is that it's not a bike for the short, the inexperienced, or the faint-hearted. It's a big machine, very tall, 870mm with the standard seat in the low position, and fully fueled it's up around the 260kg mark. But I can just about make do at 5'9" or 175cm, and it does have some nice techie features like the minimum preload setting, which winds it off as you come to a stop to lower the back end, or the easy lift that opens up the damping when you switch the bike on to make it easier to pick up off the stand. On top of that, if you're still struggling, there are plenty of options in the accessories catalogue for seats and suspension kits, which can get it surprisingly low, so 805mm, which does make it much more accessible to a wider range of riders.
Now the other headline feature specifically on this Rally model is the big 30-litre tank, so that's 8 litres up on the standard Multistrada V4. To do this, they've used an aluminium fuel tank as opposed to the twin-skin plastic tank on the standard bike, and so although the external dimensions are pretty much the same, you've got a big boost in capacity. And it is massively welcome. The trade-off of having that super powerful engine is that it's pretty thirsty on fuel. So if you're thinking about doing some serious touring miles on a Multistrada, then this one is probably going to look quite tempting. So Ducati claim about 450 kilometers or 280 miles on a tank. And while that isn't quite as much as some of the other 30-litre tanked adventure bikes on the market, for most people, I think that should be enough.
Now, one of the measures they've included to try and improve fuel efficiency as well as comfort is the advanced rear cylinder deactivation system. This basically switches off the rear cylinder bank at lower revs, so it's pretty much acting as a parallel twin. Then they automatically and seamlessly kick back in when you start to accelerate, and it's a brilliant system. There's no noticeable step, and they say that not only does it give it a little more fuel efficiency, but it's also good for emissions as well as heat management, so you won't get quite so hot around the seat, which is, of course, always welcome.
Now, aerodynamics seem to have been well thought out on this bike. You've got this nice big touring friendly windscreen, which is easy to adjust with a single finger, let alone hand. You've also got the handguards as well, which do keep a bit of wind chill off your knuckles. And then it has to be said, it's a pretty girthy bike around the tank, and so wind protection generally is decent, and I think you could do decent miles on this in a range of sort of temperatures. The other thing I like is down on the side here, there's some mini winglets that scoop the air up, and so it'll keep you cool if you're riding in hot weather. But on the other hand, if you want to be warmed up by the heat of the engine, they've got some little flaps you can close to stop that cold air rushing through.
As for the handling on this rally version, well, you've got the spoke wheels as standard and the longer suspension to give it a bit more off-road capability if you fancy doing that. But personally, I don't think I would on a bike of this size and expense, maybe apart from fire roads and relatively easy gravel. But on the road, it's fantastic anyway, and can really hustle a bit as well as do the comfy cruising. Brakes feel good for a hefty bike, and the standard tyres do the job nicely too, but I think most of all it's the semi-active electronic suspension that's impressed me the most. This is Showa's Skyhook system, which basically keeps the bike level over bumps, as if it's suspended from a hook in the sky, hence the name. And it all ties into the riding modes, so you'll get the best possible ride for specific conditions, and it always feels composed, which is so impressive for such a big bike, even when you're hard on the brakes or throttle. It's also got some nice little conveniences like the auto preload, which keeps the bike level at the back regardless of whether you're solo, fully loaded with a passenger and luggage, or anywhere in between.
In fact, I've got to say the whole tech package on this bike really is impressive. There are lots of settings to go at, and while that could become a little bit overwhelming, I think they've done a good job of sort of grouping them into riding modes that are easy to use and intuitive. Then once you get more familiar, perhaps you can start to delve into the menus and dial in your own individual specific settings. And of course, there's all sorts of things you can change, from engine braking, traction control, ABS to wheelie control and power modes and engine maps. And I've got to say as well, I think that Ducati have done a fantastic job of sort of laying out the dash to make it easy to use and very clear, whilst at the same time not making it too simplistic and sterile. There's still a bit of emotion to it. It's got quite a sporty appearance in fact, but yeah, it's very clear to read, especially for a bike with so many features. So a great dash, and I think it's a good point at which to give a shout out to today's video sponsors, and that's Speedo Angels. Fancy TFT displays like this can cost hundreds if not thousands to replace if they get scratched or damaged, but Speedo Angels dash protectors cost just a few quid. Plus they may confirm most new models from all the major manufacturers, so do check out the link down in the description to pick up yours, and you'll also find a 20% discount code down there specifically for my viewers.
The other techie feature I love is the radar system, which is standard on all the different specs of Multi V4 Rally. Not only do you get the blind spot warnings on the mirror, which are super useful, but also active cruise control at the front radar, which I think is excellent. The cruise control system will automatically keep a distance from the vehicle in front, and I just love it every time I try it. Maybe not for every ride, but when the motorway gets busy, it's just another useful tool for helping to reduce fatigue and keep you focused on the traffic around you. And Ducati have done a great job with this particular implementation.
Now number 10, and my favorite things about this bike has to be the styling. It's a phenomenal looking bike, especially in this paint job, which is specific to the Rally model, and it really shows off that beautiful brushed aluminium fuel tank. I also like that little pop of red on the subframe. I think the spoke wheels contribute to the look as well. And with this full adventure version, you also get a carbon front mudguard, so lots of little touches that make it feel really nice and high quality and premium. And there aren't really any little areas where this bike looks underfinished. It's all round stunning.
So pretty much perfect, right? Well, perhaps not. The price, I would say, is prohibitively high. The base Multistrada V4 comes in at £16,995. The V4S, with better brakes and better suspension and more tech, well, that's £20,495, and that's without the radar tech. The V4 Rally, which does come with the radar tech as standard, starts at £23,590, and then this full adventure version with the luggage, the heated seats and grips, the Akropovich silencer, carbon mudguard, this one comes in at £27,140. Clearly, this bike is going to be well out of budget for most motorcyclists, but that still hasn't dampened my appreciation for what a phenomenal machine it is in terms of that blend of crazy performance, sumptuous comfort, and cutting-edge tech.
At the moment, I'd probably say it's the most impressive array of features that you can currently get on an adventure bike, although BMW are currently working on their follow-up to the 1250 GS, which is due out sometime later this year. So look, if you want to see the latest spy shots, plus find out everything that we know about it so far, then I'll put the video on the screen here so you can give it a click, give it a watch, let us know what you think of the bike down in the comments. Many thanks for watching today, and we'll see you in the next one.